It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hipp.
Do you pay much attention to these cabinet appointments in Washington and all the political news from the Trump 2.0 administration? Barry Watts will share how your taxes will be impacted by the Trump administration and what we can take out of this so far in this Sunday's Watts on Wealth. Hi, this is Ralph Hipp. Welcome in this Sunday as we welcome Barry to the mic. And hello, Barry Watts.
Well, hello, Ralph. And yes, I do pay attention to what's going on in Washington. You may or may not know that last week, Eric Burlison was appointed to the new, I'll call it the Committee on Government Secrets. It has to do with the JFK assassination, the Martin Luther King assassination, the RFK assassination. Has to do with the COVID origination, where that came from.
Documentation of where that came from.
And 9/11, actually.
Oh,
and
my.
the theory, I think there were some other things maybe, but those were the big ones. And the theory is that there are government secrets being kept, and I think we know there are. And so they have appointed a committee to release that information, and Burlison happens to be on that committee. He and there were about 8 names, and they were all kind of these young right side firebrand types. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to see all that information released. I don't understand what we're waiting on. Frankly, Trump said he was going to release it, so open the files and let it go. But I guess I'm too simplistic, and there's more to government than that. So, yeah, I pay attention to what's going on. In fact, I talked to Billy Long this past week.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, Billy is Trump's nominee to be the commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service.
He is.
And so I had a big, interesting conversation with Billy. He said it'd probably be another month or so before he was formally in the seat. He's got to go through Senate confirmation. And right now they're still working on the cabinet positions. And since he will be at a sub-cabinet level, his confirmation will come later. So indeed, I'm in touch with what's going on in those places. And I think it's important that we know about what they're doing and the decisions they're making, because it affects not only our economy and our country, but it affects our pocketbook. And that's where the rubber really hits the road for most of us.
Well, listen to how Barry Watts is connected to that Washington scene, folks, and you can get connected with Barry. So from Washington's ears to Barry and your mouth to his ears, his number is 417-200-3500 at the Wealth Care Corporation right here in Springfield, 417-200-3500. Billy Long, and he may be presiding over a lot fewer staff members. We'll see how the IRS layoff situation goes.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. And,
from Ralph's lips to God's ears.
There's more lips to ears talk right there. I want to direct everything to Scott Bessent. I believe he's was he a hedge fund manager, investment advisor?
Yeah, he's a billionaire. He's
guy.
A rich hedge fund manager.
Scott Bessent, he's been confirmed as our Treasury Secretary and says he'd like to preserve as much of the TCJA, the 2017 Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, as possible. And Scott said this right after his January confirmation.
If we do not renew and extend, then we will be facing an economic calamity. And as always, with financial instability, that falls on the middle and working class people.
So have you talked to Scott Bessent yet, Barry? And what's your reaction to what he just said, his lips to Washington's ears?
Well, I haven't talked to Scott Bessent. I don't have a direct line to him. But it is kind of interesting. You know, there's that concept that everyone on the planet is only 6 degrees separated from everyone else on the planet. And I'm only 1 degree separated from Scott Bessent, 1 degree separated from Trump. Scott Bessent is actually going to be Billy Long's boss if Billy is confirmed into the seat. Okay. And by the way, I used that phrase with Billy this week on the phone. I said something to the effect of, if you're confirmed. He said, you mean when I'm confirmed?
When I'm confirmed,
so, yeah, he's quick like that. He said, you mean when I'm confirmed? So because anyway, Bessent will be his boss.
Barry, I was going to throw in, being a news guy and watching this, no one's been rejected to this point. Everyone's been confirmed. So Billy's pretty confident about all that.
Well, you know, there's always a first. I mean, when you say I'm dialed into Washington, I'll tell you what good that does you. You talk to these guys and they all just kind of shrug their shoulders and tell you what they think, but nobody knows anything for sure. And, you know, there are a few things that are said around the edges that I won't repeat because they're not repeatable, really. But
all right.
You just don't know what to expect. Now, here's what Bessent did. Bessent will be Billy's boss if Bessent or if Billy gets into the seat as the commissioner of the IRS. And I do know that Billy and Besant had dinner together just a few nights ago at the Hay Adams Hotel, which is right across the street from the White House. So I know that they're having these conversations about what will take place. And Besant, of course, at a different level than just running the IRS, he's talking about the tax cuts that the IRS, tax levels that the IRS will enforce. And what he said in his clip there was that if we didn't extend and renew the tax cuts, then the middle class was going to be caught in the squeeze. And I think that's absolutely the truth. I believe he's right about that. And I am optimistic that we will get these tax cuts renewed and extended. I'm not planning on it because you don't know for sure. So we have to build our plans based on what the law currently is. But as I just sit back and read the tea leaves and smell it, like you said, Ralph, everything Trump's asked for so far he's gotten in terms of his nominees. And he's been pushing hard for the extension of these tax cuts. And the people leading the Congress, including Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, are pushing in the same way. So I'm optimistic that we will hopefully see these tax cuts maybe by the middle of the summer, renewed and extended.
And yes, Barry, as you were mentioning, let's tie this back and relate this to folks right here in Springfield. And you're sitting on the porch money and everything you talk about. Nothing is final on these tax cuts right now. When it comes to our tax rates as they are in 2025, what are you generally telling people around the Ozarks looking to make the most of the situation?
Well, I think you have to make your decisions based on what the law is today. I think that there's a pretty good chance that the law may change. Now, what's going to change is that the law is not going to change. Let me explain that. Right now, on December 31st, all of the tax cuts that came in with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017 are set to expire, to roll back. And so I think the change is going to be that change doesn't happen. That's what we're hoping for, that they will extend those tax cuts in 2017, maybe not extend them, maybe just draw a line in the sand and make those things permanent. So right now we make our decision, always we make our decision based on what the law says. And the law says they're going to end at the end of the year, but what we think is going on is that they will probably be extended or made permanent. And the good news is we don't have to make any decisions today about that. We've got a window of time to respond to what the Congress is going to do. And so what I'm telling people who are calling right now who want to do Roth conversions, we're not even in Roth season yet. That starts the 16th day of April, and it runs until Thanksgiving. And so we're telling people, well, when we get to Roth season, we'll know a little bit more about it, and we'll be able to make some better decisions. But really, we don't have any pressure to finish those decisions up until we're getting up toward Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Okay, Barry Watts on the Watts on Wealth radio show. This is Ralph Hipp along with you this Sunday. Glad to have you along. So, Barry, we're in tax preparation season big time right now. Let's talk about how central is tax-efficient planning when it comes to our overall retirement strategy this year.
Well, it is critical, Ralph. Tax planning is critical, and no one, for the most part, does it. Over the course of your retirement, the average person is going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. And they think that that's the way it just has to be because that's the way it is. And I'm telling you, that's not the way it has to be. It can be changed. You can reduce the amount of tax you pay. In some cases, you can eliminate the taxes and be in the 0% tax bracket, but not everyone can do that. There's only one way to know if you can do that, and that is to do a tax analysis over your retirement lifetime. It's what we do at the Wealth Care Corporation for people who ask for that. So here's the big deal. You can make the change you need to, but you've got to take action. You've got to step in and say, hey, I want to examine this and be sure that I am making the best possible decisions to minimize the tax that I have to pay in retirement. And the good news is we can help you with that. Difference between our firm and a lot of them, when you ask financial advisor type people for help with taxes, they usually shrug their shoulders and say, well, I don't know. You'll have to talk to your CPA, your tax man about that. And we got tired of saying that at the Wealth Care Corporation, went back to school, and we became the tax man. And so we're able to answer those questions and address those things and speak into that at an executive professional level that is very helpful to the people that we serve at Wealth Care.
So, folks, if you'd like to talk to Barry right now, as you're getting your taxes prepared for the year, what about your tax analysis, your tax planning? Get with Barry. Hey, that number again, 417 around Springfield, 200-3500, 200-3500 to Barry at the Wealth Care Corporation. And I'll say Barry and his great team. Well, Barry can talk all about this with you and could go on till the cows come home at night. The Tax Foundation says that if these 2017 tax cuts are allowed to expire at the end of the year, Barry has said it too, our taxes will go up. They would increase about 62% for taxpayers on the average, Barry.
Well, that's true. You know, Ralph, I never see anyone in the lowest tax bracket, which is 10%. I don't know if there aren't very many people in that bracket or they just don't show up in my office, but they're not people we could probably help much anyway. The lowest tax bracket that we ever see bump into our office is the 12% bracket. So I'll refer to that as being the lowest bracket today. And the interesting thing is, in that next to the lowest bracket at 12%, taxes are going to increase on those people by 25%. Now, Ralph, my personal taxes in the highest bracket are only going up 7%. And so what it means is the folks who are making less, who are lower income in the lowest tax bracket, are going to have the weight of these tax increases fall disproportionately up on them. So you hear all this way, you know, it's said all the time, oh, the taxes will just fall on the rich and the wealthy, the people they used to say making more than $400,000 a year. It just simply isn't true. The fact of the matter is, if you're only in the 12% tax bracket, your taxes are going to go up by 25% unless Bessent gets his wish. And we can see the Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2017, otherwise known as the Trump tax cuts, can see those extended or maybe even made permanent. So I hope that we're going to do more than that, frankly. I hope we're going to totally remodel taxes from soup to nuts. But the truth is, it's such a mess. I think you just have to really sort of blow the whole thing up and then come back and do triage and heal up the people who got hurt somewhere along the way. So, Ralph, here's what I personally favor if we could get it done. Totally dismantle the tax structure that we have, and let's go to a fair tax that's based on consumption instead of earnings. That way you only pay taxes on money you spend. You don't pay taxes on money that you're saving and investing. And that would be a great boon to the investment of capital in the United States, and I think could lead to a renaissance economically and a renaissance in manufacturing and the development of technology here in the homeland. I think that would be a great solution. Now, before you get there, some people are going to say, oh, well, that's not fair to the people who don't make as much money because they're paying more of their income in taxes. No, there's a tax credit on the backside of that for people who are in those lower tax brackets. And nobody, for example, would pay tax on the first, let's say, $30,000 in income because of that tax credit. So that's the concept. I think it's a good idea, and I'd like to see us move toward that. And if we're ever going to do it, I think this could be the season where the opportunity exists.
Well, give Barry a call and get connected with Barry, and we're all keeping an eye on Washington and the tariff situation, how much would come in or go out from Trump tariffs. But Barry can help you control the timing of when you pay your taxes. You control whether to pay your taxes when you die. By being proactive, you can control the amount of tax you pay this year versus next year. So Barry can discuss all that with you when you get together with him. So we'll take a brief break. And next up, our main topic of discussion. Barry and I have a lot more to talk about in the hour here. This is Ralph Hipp with Barry. You're listening to What's on Wealth.
Are questions about your financial future, such as, have I saved enough, or will my money last, keeping you up at night? Reach out to Barry Watts by texting VISIT to 417-200-3500. Again, that's text the word VISIT to 417-200-3500 to schedule your consultation today. Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in What's on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the WealthCare Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of What's on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of What's on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through Wealthcare Asset Management, LLC. Life is full of uncertainties, but your retirement plan should not be one of them. Don't let market fluctuations dictate your future. Contact Barry Watts to secure your retirement today at 417-200-3500. Again, that's 417-200-3500.
Welcome back in for this Sunday. It is the famous Watts on Wealth radio show. We hope you're with us every Sunday morning right here. Barry, getting back to our conversation, what are some strategies you might want to recommend to help us navigate the unknowns out there? What will happen with the economy or the interest rates or taxes in 2026 or our interest rates even in 2025?
Well, Ralph, there are unknowns. We don't know if we're going to be healthy or sick. We plan to be healthy. We hope to be healthy, but you never know when sickness is going to come upon you. We never know when taxes are going to go up. Well, we do know they're going to go up in 26. That's 2026. You'll see a tax rate. The average person will see a rate increase of about 15% or thereabouts. But some people will see much larger increases than that. What's going to happen to taxes? What's going to happen to my health? What's going to happen to the stock market? Is it going to go up or is it going to go down? Are we going to elect Trump or are we going to elect Kamala? Is this the end of America as we know it? Or is there perhaps a chance to redeem it because we adopt the right policies in the person that we elect? So all of these unknowns contribute to our retirement. And what we have to do is build a plan that anticipates the unknown because we sort of know what is likely to happen. For example, we know tax rates are mostly going to go up in the future of our the remaining years of our life. We know that there is probably a 75% chance that a 65-year-old couple, one of the two of them will go into long-term care. We know that's going to happen. We know that there will be a negative year in the stock market somewhere in the future. So when we build your plan, we put those things in your plan and we say, well, let's add 1 year out of 5 where the market dumps off and loses 20%. And at age 80, let's send one of the couple, the husband or the wife, let's send them to long-term care and let's hit them with all of those costs of long-term care. And let's see what that does to their retirement plan. Is their retirement plan resilient despite those burdens coming upon them? And once we test your retirement plan for all these unknowns, I call it stress testing. We put those stressors on your retirement plan. And then if it still works, you still have income to age 100, then you're kind of almost bulletproof. You're ready to go. And if it doesn't work, and oh my goodness, you were going to run out of money at 88, but if you get into a long-term care situation, you're going to run out of money at 78. Well, then we've got to talk. You've either got to live less, you got to retire later, you got to take less income in retirement, or you got to die earlier. Those are going to be your options. And I just think it's important for people to at least know that before that time comes upon them. I don't want them to walk in one day and say, how come I didn't get my check this month? And the answer is, well, because we sent you all your money. You don't have any money left in your account. So that's the way our planning process accounts for the unknowns.
We have lots of options to weigh right now. We mentioned at the start of the show, what do we do? What opportunity do we have with the higher interest rates, at least for a few more weeks? A lot of options to check out, Barry, when it comes to saving and investing, and you don't want to miss out on the ways to possibly capitalize on those higher interest rates and savings opportunities. Navigate us through some of that.
Well, Ralph, a lot of people that I work with have done a really good job of saving up to the retirement point. And as long as interest rates remain high, as they kind of are right now, well, they've got some pretty decent opportunities to boost their returns. And so what I would say is if you're getting close to retirement, maybe you're 55 plus, or maybe you're already retired, but, on the short side of 70 or something like that, then you might want to call us and let us talk with you about some options to tune up and improve the performance of how your retirement engine runs. Now, in order to talk with us, Ralph, I got to tell you, you need to have a minimum of about $250,000. We see a lot of cases where people have more like $2.5 million or $4 million or something like that. But in order for us to get out our tools and use those tools on your situation and improve your situation, it takes a certain amount of capital for that to all work. And it takes about $250,000 for us to begin to move the needle and make a difference for you. So if you've got about $250,000 or more, any amount more than that, then I would encourage you to sit down and get an interest rate review on your portfolio and talk about how you might be able to get higher returns, better rates, better performance on your portfolio. We will talk about annuities. That doesn't mean we'll get any of them. You know, there's some of these guys on the radio who are, just annuity. Give me a break. There's a place for an annuity. Annuities can be very effective, and we use them in our practice, but not everybody needs one, and not everybody needs everything in an annuity. So here's the deal. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know the future, what's going to happen. If I did know the future, I'd already be retired sitting on the beach somewhere, I suppose. But since I can't predict the economic future and the interest rate future and how the interest rate cycles are going to work and the dips and soaring things that'll happen both with interest and taxes, then we're subject to penalties if we don't plan and prepare for ourselves as well as possible. And that means that right now you've got an opportunity to look at your retirement savings and be sure it's dialed in correctly. And you're using the right tools to lock in some higher fixed interest right now. So we'd like for you to have that higher rate. And even if the Fed decides to lower rates, well, that rate will be guaranteed to you. So why don't you call us today at 417-200-3500, or you can text the word visit 417-200-3500. And we'll get you on the calendar. You can come in and sit down and visit with me. That's just exactly what we will do. Keep your checkbook at home. You're not going to have to write a check. We're just going to talk. I don't know if I can help you, but I'm pretty sure I can help most people. So come in and sit down and we'll talk about your situation and we'll see how it fits. And maybe you can join that growing chorus of radio listeners who have come to the Wealth Care Corporation for help and found that we were able to make a great difference for them.
Absolutely. So we want to go on to our next topic here, Barry, and making our money work for us. Now, it's not what you make, it's what you keep that really counts as you get to retirement. As you think about your finances and retirement, have you thought about all this? So many people think it's less about the number of dollars you've saved and more about the strategies. That's exactly right. It's not the dollar amount in the checkbook. It's about the strategies to preserve that and use with your savings. So dollars and cents or strategies, which do you think it is, Barry?
Both. It doesn't do any good to have strategies. In fact, I have people show up in my office once in a while. I don't know how they got an appointment because they shouldn't have gotten an appointment. They show up in my office and they don't have 15 cents. But boy, they've got a strategy on how they're going to get rich. And they'd like for me to do the tax planning on how we're going to avoid the income taxes when they make this $1 million that they don't have. And frankly, I don't think have much chance of getting. So, they don't have any money. They just have a strategy that's not very helpful. But if you've got some money, then you need to be very strategic in how you use that money and how you plan with that money and the tax strategies you bring to the table with that money so that your money will last longer and go further. So it's not one or the other, Ralph. It's both. You got to have money, but you also got to have strategies to make your money last as long as possible.
Good example there, Barry. And remember what he said about that threshold. If you have so much here, it's $250,000. If you remember that part of our show, folks, then you can really get involved with Barry and his strategies. So you've been working hard and stashing away your savings from your paycheck. And when you're ready to step into the retirement years, it's not about having that nest egg. You put money in, and then you're retired and you take it out and take it out. We want to help you turn what you've saved into a regular retirement era paycheck. So how do we flip our savings, Barry, into that reliable cash flow when we decide to call it a career?
Well, that's a big issue. People have got a big lump sum of money, but they don't have the first clue how to get income out of that. And so where we begin is with the retirement income plan. We sit down and say, well, let's prove, first of all, that you're going to have income all the way to age 100. For example, I had a client in just today who works for one of the largest CPA firms in the country and is a CPA himself. He's ready to retire just shortly. And he wanted us to help him make sure he was going to have the right amount of retirement income. And what we figured out for him was that at the income level that he really wanted, he was going to probably run out of money at the age of about 88. Now, I knew his dad was still living. So I said, how old's your dad? And he said, he's 96. I said, well, I don't know if we can afford to run out of money at 88. Maybe we need to dial back on the spending a little bit. And that's exactly what we did for him. And it was enough money to still do everything that he wanted to do. So it wasn't a problem. But the point is, we had to do the analysis to show him how long the money was going to last to then figure out, do we really want to spend that much or do we want to adjust our spending? Or maybe if you're going to have, in his case, it wasn't this way, but maybe in your case, you're going to have lots of money left over when you die. Well, maybe you need to increase your spending. Now, once we figured that out, how much you're going to be able to spend, what we do is we segment the money into 3 different buckets, I call them. You got a now bucket, a soon bucket, and a later bucket. The now bucket is income money that you're going to spend in the next 12 months. Some of that stays in cash. Some of it goes into a short-term 6-month treasury bond. Some of it goes then into the soon bucket. Soon bucket is money that is going to be spent in years 2, 3, and 4. And every year, some of that soon bucket money then moves over into the now bucket because that's the year when we're going to spend it. And then all the money that's 5 years or later, we keep that out there in what we call the later bucket. And we grow that money to make it grow for the future. So how do you manage your nest egg, turn it into reliable cash flow? You figure out how much cash flow you're going to need. And then you segment your money into a now bucket for this year, a soon bucket for the next few years, and a later bucket for the years after that.
Get your buckets ready, folks, and Barry can help you do that. Barry, remind us again, if we'd like to listen in on the podcast, we want to hear what you said again, and then tie that into reading your material in the book. How do we find the podcast? How do we get a copy of your book, which is What's on Wealth, by the way?
Well, Ralph, we are putting out a lot of information because we want people to have it accessible in the way they like to digest it. Just before I was talking with you, I happened to get off the phone with a guy who called and wanted to talk to me who is a banker in Bolivar. And one of the first things he said is, man, I love your videos. They're helpful. I watch every one of them and I share them. And that's perfect. That's exactly what he wanted. We wanted him to do. So if you're interested in learning about these things, there are a couple of things you can do. You can go to YouTube, just type the words YouTube into your browser, and it'll take you to YouTube, and you type in What's on Wealth, WATTSON Wealth, What's on Wealth, and it'll take you to our YouTube pages, and it's loaded with video. It's loaded with our podcast of this show. You can listen to back issues of this show, back versions of the show. You can episodes. That's the word I was looking for. You can watch past episodes of my podcast, The Truth About Taxes and Retirement. So it's just a lot of rich information to be found over there at YouTube on What's on Wealth. Secondly, I've written a book, What's on Wealth. And we'd like to send you a copy of that book. So all you've got to do is text the word book to 417-200-3500. Text BOOK to 417-200-3500. And we'll put an autographed copy in the book in the mail to you on Monday morning.
So many resources out there. And Barry, time for our break. And I love that we're hearing from some people who say, I listen to What's on Wealth in the parking lot at church. I'm waiting for church to get out. Something productive you can do. I'm listening to What's on Wealth right here on our talk station before I go into church this Sunday. So that's another great idea. And mix it all together. Put all this information together. It really will help you out. Time for us on our radio show to take a break. This is Ralph Hipp along with J. Barry Watts of Springfield's Wealth Care Corporation. We'll take a break. Don't move your car anywhere from the parking lot or home or wherever you are, and we'll be right back in just a minute or so here.
Worried about whether your savings will see you through retirement? If you're asking yourself questions like, have I saved enough, or will my retirement last? It's time to talk with Barry Watts. Simply text VISIT to 417-200-3500. That's text VISIT to 417-200-3500 and arrange your visit today. Life is full of uncertainties, but your retirement plan should not be one of them. Don't let market fluctuations dictate your future. Contact Barry Watts to secure your retirement today at 417-200-3500. Again, that's 417-200-3500.
Time for the second half of this Sunday's Watts on Wealth radio show with Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation at Battlefield Road and Highway 65 in Springfield. I'm your radio host, Ralph Hipp. By the way, Barry and I are back with a new fall season of Watts on Wealth on KY3. We're back on TV. And that's also Sunday morning and sometimes middle of the night. If you are having your milk and cookies and up late, you can see us up late or early on Sunday morning on KY3 and some more brand new episodes on the way. So you'll see how dashing At 61, Barry Watts looks on television. I think he's a dashing guy. So, and back to our radio and your reassuring voice, Barry. A really good financial advisor like Barry can be a great resource in managing your money and mapping out that retirement plan for your future. Barry, how do you help us find just the right person to do those things? Or whether it's you or whoever it is, wherever they are, how do we find just the right person?
Well, of course, Ralph, we think that people should call us because we're really good at what we do.
Sure.
But the truth is, for whatever reason, not everybody's going to call us. Some people are going to go other places, talk to other people. And so what should you be thinking about? Well, I think the first thing is just simply this. Do you like them? Do you like them? Or are they a bit annoying to you? You know, we had a client in the office this past week, and when he left, we all gathered together and talked about how we didn't enjoy that client. Now, he's a nice man. There's nothing wrong with him. He's a kind man. But for some reason that we can't figure out, we just don't gel with him and how he approaches the room when he walks into it. So I think it's important to just ask the question, do you like them? Secondly, are they an expert, and has that been demonstrated? Have they demonstrated to you their expertise? Or do they instead just quickly talk about investment products? Well, thank you for sitting down. I've got a mutual fund for you, or I've got an annuity for you. That's a pretty bad sign. In fact, instead of moving to talk to products quickly, they should have kind of an order to the conversation, and it should start with you. Who are you? What do you want to do with the rest of your life? What are your hopes and aspirations and concerns? It all starts with you. It then moves to a strategy to help you do the things that you want to do. And once we know what the strategy is, we can turn that into a plan. Okay, we're going to have money for this year, and money for this year, and money for this event, and money for that project. And it's going to have to increase because of inflation. And we build all that into our planning. And finally, it comes down to the use of a product. But interestingly, Ralph, we hardly ever talk with our clients about products. Our clients have us work for them. They say, take my money and do it. But they don't usually even know what products that we're going to be using, because it's not about the products. I mean, when you go to the doctor and you've got a really bad ache or pain, and I mean, it requires surgery, do you say, well, now, doctor, before you cut me open and we do the surgery, I know I need surgery and I want you to do the surgery, but before we do it, could you please tell me the brand of silk you're going to use to sew me up, and who manufactured the scalpel that you're going to use to cut me open? Nah, you don't ask those questions. Those are product questions. What you want to know is how much confidence you can have in the person, and do they have a strategy and a plan to help you get better. I always think, Ralph, that you need to find out if they've got strategic tax expertise. It's really ridiculous that we allow people to be in the financial industry where every move they make creates taxes. And we don't have, in most cases, most of the people who are in the financial industry don't have any tax expertise. And if you ask them a tax question, they say, oh, I can't answer that. I don't know anything about that. You got to go talk to your CPA. Well, guess what? At the Wealth Care Corporation, we can answer the question. In fact, I had a guy call me this past week from Rogersville, my hometown. And he called me. It was funny. I knew who he was. In fact, I have his phone number in my cell phone. And so he called me, and one of his concerns was he had an account that he wanted to sell, but it was going to be a lot of tax, he was afraid, when he sold it. And I was able to tell him, based on the information he shared with me, that he was not going to have any tax when he sold it. 0 capital gains. That's pretty good news. And I can't promise that for you, that you'll have 0 capital gains, but I can promise you a strategic tax expertise. We are professionals in that area, and that's what we do. The people you hire to help you retire, they should be proficient in long-term care and in Medicare. They ought to be doing estate planning, and they ought to have a process, a set of steps that you can follow that takes you through all of those different things. And by the way, we have that process at the Wealth Care Corporation. It's called the 6 Steps to Retirement Confidence.
That is it. And do you want to give just a brief synopsis of your famous 6 steps to retirement confidence right here, Barry?
Well, sure, Ralph. I'm happy to do that.
Let's do that.
Think about why you need 6 steps, first of all. And here's why. People get ready to retire and they have anxiety. I don't know if I should retire. I don't know if I'm ready yet. I don't know if I have enough money. I think I'll just work another year because it's frankly easier to work another year than it is to have to go through the process of deciding whether I should retire. So what we did is we took all the things that would keep you from retiring, the things that could blow up, that would be concerns. I call them boogeymen. We took all the boogeymen and said, okay, let's deal with all of those in a sequential process that eliminates the problems. And so it starts with income. Step number 1, it's like climbing a staircase. It starts with income. Do you have income that will last to age 100? Let's figure that out first. Step number 2, do you have either tax-free or tax-minimized income to the greatest degree possible? We always prefer to make it tax-free if we can. And for about a third of our clients, we're able to get them into a 0% tax bracket where they don't pay taxes in retirement, even though they may have millions of dollars. By the way, if you have an income problem, meaning that your step 1 wasn't going to make it all the way to 100, well, sometimes when we do the tax strategy, it actually extends your money and causes it to last a few years longer and can get you to age 100. So the first step is income. The second step is taxes. The third step, principal protection. I talked to you about that earlier on the show. How to be sure a portion of your principal is protected so that no matter what happens in the stock market, you don't lose a dime. 0% is the worst you can ever do in a bad market. The fourth step, long-term care. How are you going to pay for it? Well, believe it or not, there are strategies that still work for long-term care. Most people think the ship has sailed. You can't get long-term care anymore. That's not true. You just have to look at it a different way, approach it a different way, and you have to know how to approach it. And we set many people up with long-term care plans. About 3/4 of our clients actually have those. And then finally, your legacy and estate planning. How are we going to pass your money, your assets on to the people you love and care about? How are we going to pass on to your grandkids those things that money can't buy and death can't take away, those closely held values that are personal to you, which for me are spiritual values? It's important to me that my kids and my grandkids know and understand who Jesus is and that they follow him. I want them to follow him. And I want them to understand that that is a reward and a blessing and that their life will be better and smoother if they do. So I'm constantly trying to infuse those conversations into what I'm talking about with my kids, those topics into our conversation. Well, those are 5 of the 6 steps. Ralph, the 6th step is every year or so we sit down and we look at all the other steps and we say, is everything still in order with my income? Is my tax rate still at 0? Is my principal still protected? Is my long-term care still covered? Do I need to improve my Medicare coverage for the things that Medicare won't plan for? Do I need to adjust my legacy plan? And do I have an in-law who became an outlaw, so I need to write him out of the will or something like that? Did I have somebody get married or somebody die? We actually had a client lost a daughter this week. It was a horribly sad thing, a young daughter. And that happens, and that can adjust families.
It's awful, awful.
Yeah. Oh, I just can't even begin to imagine.
No, can't imagine.
That can cause an adjustment in how you're doing your estate plan, and somebody needs to be bringing that to your attention and saying, okay, we have to make an adjustment now. So those are the steps that we go through in the 6 steps to retirement confidence. We'd love to put you on that staircase and help you see how it works. And when you get to the top of it, and you have retirement confidence, we'd like to be there when you pump your fist in the air like an Olympic champion and you hear, I don't know, your version of the Star Spangled Banner, whatever it is, played for you. Right. We're trying to get everybody to the top so they can put the gold medal around their neck and hear the Star Spangled Banner played.
That is beautiful, Barry. So with the 6 steps to retirement confidence, sometimes we have the steps, but we might set some goals that are unrealistic and really hard to reach and going up the mountain. Are the 6 steps a big part of that in helping clients find that sweet spot when you're listening to them and talking with them about what they want their retirement to look like?
Well, the 6 steps help us get stable data. So people come in. I had a guy come in this week and you know, he just wants to start talking about how much he wants to take out of his account. Well, dude, that's not the right question. Because we haven't dealt with the taxes. We haven't thought about how much income you're going to need. Now, he had done some of that in his mind, but you know what? He hadn't accounted for the taxes. And the amount that he wanted to take out when we got done with all our calculations was about half what he really needed to take out to do everything that he wanted to do. So I would encourage you to come with fewer answers and more questions. and let us take you through the process. And if you go through the process, then I think that it's likely to be a good outcome for you. And it's going through that process that helps us figure out, are the things you want to do realistic or unrealistic? I want to own a vacation home in Maui and on the Florida coastline. Well, maybe, I don't know. There are very few people really who are unrealistic. Most people have a pretty good idea. And truthfully, if somebody's wildly unrealistic, they're not a good fit. And I just try to move on because we're interested in helping solid Southwest Missouri, mom and pop, grandma and grandpa kind of people who grew up like I did. They know the value of a dollar. They've worked hard. And they're taking care of their money in the same way. And so while people aren't unrealistic, many of them are uninformed. They don't know what's possible. They don't know how they can better achieve their goals, stretch their money, make it last longer, and make it earn more. And truthfully, we're experts at that. That's what we do every day of our life. So come see us at the Wealth Care Corporation, and we'll help you to make that happen. The number to call to schedule an appointment is 417-200-3500, 417-200-3500. Love to visit with you and see how we could help.
Those visits, friends, may help you stop pulling too much money out of your retirement accounts and stop having you pay too much in taxes you don't need to pay through efficient tax strategies. Hey, we're going to take a brief break here. We're almost to the end of our terrific hour with Barry. More to come, though, on the Watts on Wealth radio show. More wit and wisdom from Mr. Watts when we come back from this message or two for him.
The pace of inflation may change, but it never disappears. How might it affect your retirement nest egg? Get the answers by calling Barry Watts at 417-200-3500. Once more, that's 417-200-3500. Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in Watts on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through WealthCare Asset Management, LLC. If you're pondering the longevity of your retirement savings with questions like, is my nest egg sufficient? Or how long will my retirement funds last? Consider scheduling a session with Barry Watts. Text VISIT to 417-200-3500. Again, that's text VISIT to 417-200-3500 now to set up your appointment.
Time now to close our show. We've got a lot more to go, though. We're going to open Barry's email bag and go over some of your common retirement questions. Before that, though, Barry, you're telling me during the break off microphone, you ran into somebody at a local restaurant who recognized you from the TV show?
Well, yeah, I did, Ralph, and it's kind of humorous. That happens fairly frequently.
Or more and
town,
more now.
This particular event was sort of funny. We were at Rogersville's finest restaurant, which we call the Big M Breakfast Club. The Big M Breakfast Club is located in the east half of the Shell station at the major intersection right there in town. It's the local McDonald's. And I personally like a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit. And so on Saturday mornings, we tend to go there. And I needed some diesel fuel in my tractor. So Kelly and I jumped in the tractor and we drove the tractor to town to fuel it up. And I'm out at the diesel pumps fueling it up. And Kelly's inside waiting on me. And this guy who had seen her come in, knew she rode in with me. He came up to her and he said, "Is that your husband?" And she said, "Yes, it is." And he said, "Is he Barry Watts from TV?" And she said, "Well, yes, he is." And I was just impressed that he knew my name. I could see how he might recognize me off the show, but oh no, he knew the name. And she and he had a big conversation about my show and the things he learned watching the show. And he seemed a little bit surprised that there I was in my overalls with boots up to my knees and mud all over them,
putting
and my
diesel in your tractor
cap pulled down. Yeah. I didn't exactly look like I do when I'm all shined up with you on television, Ralph. But, that's the way it is. We work in town and we take good care of our clients in that professional setting. And then we come home to Rogersville to the farm and we take care of the cows and the goats and the donkeys and the horses and the chickens and the ducks and the dogs and the cats and the whatever else Kelly's drug up in the menagerie. And so sometimes you just catch me in my farmer clothes, and that's okay because, we're regular folks taking care of regular folks here in the Ozarks.
There you go. You'll probably catch us on KSPR and KY3 before this show early Sunday morning if you're up before you gas up the tractor. And I think we're on in the middle of the night during the week sometimes. Barry and I are not up at that hour to see that, but if you're having insomnia is the word. If you can't sleep, you might find us in the middle of the night and early Sunday morning and watch the TV show. Join the crowd watching Watts on Wealth, the TV show on all the Springfield channels. You were also telling me, I don't know if this person had also seen you on TV, a client who came to see you, was it at the office, and said he didn't want his spouse to know how much money he had? What is that story?
Actually, that was a person who came to us off of television as well.
Yeah.
So that guy comes in to see us, and we kind of have a policy in our practice that says you bring your spouse when you come. And the reason is we used to allow people to come without their spouse, and we found that we were having to repeat those meetings because they would like what they would hear, and then they would say, well, I want to bring my spouse back and have you explain it to him or to her. And so we kind of have a policy that says bring your spouse or we can't help you. So this guy comes in without his spouse. And what he said was simply this. He says, my wife has no idea how much money we have, and I don't want her to know because if she knows, it'll all be spent. Now, my first question, of course, was, well, what happens when you die? And he was quick with the answer on that. He said, in 6 months, it'll all be gone. And he's got over $3 million. So I don't know if she can spend $3 million in 6 months, but he had a real problem, obviously, that had never been addressed in his marriage. Now, my first suggestion would be that you address that and get those things fixed. But this guy's in his 60s, probably is what it's going to be, and he's chosen not to deal with that particular problem. And so we are going to make an exception and talk with him and see if we can find out a way to help him around his wife because it's his money in his name. It's her money too, technically, but it's all technically in his name. So we're going to be able to work out a plan for him. So my word to you is, we run into these unique situations. I would say to you, bring your spouse. You need to have these conversations together. And the reason is because one day, either soon or far, one of you is going to fall over dead and not be here any longer. And we want to be sure that everybody knows where the money is, that everybody is familiar with the voices who are speaking into their life and situation. And the best way to do that is to be sure both the husband and the wife are involved in the planning process.
Let's get to some questions and real-life questions from people who are worried about all these kinds of things. This person writes in, Barry, I'm worried about being able to afford a nursing home one day. What are some of the options for handling those kinds of expenses? And if you don't have millions?
Well, one of the options is you just have enough cash to pay for it yourself. And that's going to cost about $10,000 a month. Now, the average man lives in a nursing home for 3 years, so that's going to be 36 months, $10,000. Do a little Galena math there. $360,000. Average female be in the nursing home about 5 years, going to be about $600,000 in costs. So together, if both of them went into nursing home, there's $960,000 that needs to be set aside just to pay for the nursing home. So some people say, well, got it. We'll use it for that and everything will be fine. And that's great if it works out that way. The other alternative is you could just plan on your kids taking you in. And the question is, will your kids do it? Can your kids do it? Do you want to put that burden on your kids? And do you want your kids to be responsible for changing your diaper? One of my clients said he has an agreement with his daughter that she will take care of him up until the point of diapers. And at that moment, then he has to go into long-term care himself.
They have a deal.
So you can either write the check or you can have the kids take you in, or you can have long-term care insurance. Now, Ralph, long-term care insurance is virtually a thing of the past. There are people who do have it, and for them, it may work well. There are also people who have it who are finding that their premiums are doubling each year and their benefits or alternatively are being reduced each year. And so long-term care insurance is not working out like we planned on it to because people are living so much longer and the expense associated with that is breaking the insurance companies. So there's a fourth alternative. This is the one that I personally use and that we bring to light for a lot of our clients. And that is You can have a life insurance policy, and I know people don't like to talk about life insurance, but just listen a moment. I think what you don't like is death insurance. You can have a life insurance policy that will accelerate the death benefit and pay you, not your family, while you are living.
Yes.
So that's life insurance. It's not death insurance. And so if you've got a $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 insurance policy that pays your family when you die, well, what difference does that make? You're dead and gone. If it would pay you to cover the cost of your long-term care and take that burden off your family, it can be a really, really good solution. It is the solution that I personally am using, and it's what I would recommend that people consider. Not everybody can qualify. It doesn't fit everybody's financial situation, but for many people, it's a really good solution, and it's something that I would encourage you to look into, and we're happy to help you with that at the Wealth Care Corporation. In fact, that is one of our 6 steps to retirement confidence, is dealing with long-term care. And in that process, this is one of the things that we talk about.
Barry's number, text the word visit this Sunday. Text it to 417-200-3500. Next question here. If we're not very sure we're getting the right guidance, Barry, to help protect our income from possible retirement risks such as market risk or these healthcare costs, taxes, and inflation, what should we be doing?
Well, Ralph, many people are not getting the right guidance because they're not working with a holistic retirement advisor. You see, there's a great difference between investment management and retirement advice. Over 30 years ago, I started my career in this industry working for a large firm that everybody knows the name of, that's headquartered over in St. Louis, and no planning was allowed. It was all about selling. It was all about selling particular mutual funds associated with the Stars and Stripes, in fact. I'll let you make the inference, those of you who are paying close attention. But planning was simply not allowed. In fact, at that time when I worked with that firm, if you wanted to become a certified financial planner, and I did want to, and I did eventually become that, you could not put it on your business card. You couldn't hang it on your wall. You couldn't tell anybody you were a certified financial planner because they didn't want any responsibility for planning. All they wanted to do was sell you a mutual fund investment and collect the commission for doing that. In fact, Ralph, there's a big firm on TV that advertises. They say, we do better when our clients do better. But they're a firm that's 100% stock market focused. They don't deal with these things: income planning, tax strategies, protected principal, estate planning, long-term care planning. And they actually charge a higher fee than we do just on the investment management and don't include all those other things. So you have the alternative of doing business with somebody like that, or sitting down with somebody who's local, having a face-to-face relationship and conversation, and having not just the investment management, which is about 20% of the overall retirement planning picture, but also dealing with all of those other issues like tax planning, income planning, principal protection, estate planning, long-term care, and Medicare, all under the same roof for the same price or less than you may actually be paying for investment management over at one of those other firms. So the big deal, Ralph, here is people just don't know, and they don't know what they don't know, and they don't really know where to begin the conversation. And so they think, well, I just want to get it as cheaply as possible. So they want to drive price. Really, price isn't the issue. Price is only consideration in the absence of value. The question is, what are you getting for what you're paying? I've got a friend who came to see me just about 2 weeks ago. Somebody I've known for over 20 years, and he's about ready to retire. And when we sat down and talked about his situation, he's invested very aggressively, and he plans to continue being invested very aggressively. He said to me, if it goes down, it'll come back. Well, I had to give him a lot of lessons on why, now that he's retired and not earning a paycheck, but just living out of the check he creates out of his own savings, that if the market goes down, it hurts him much worse, and he doesn't have as much time for it to recover. And so he needed to slow down and not be so aggressive. And he got it. He heard the message, and he said, it's time for me to make a change. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's time for you to make a change. So he just didn't know, because it's not what he does for a living, Ralph. It's what we do for a living every day. We're experts on this topic, and we love to bring that expertise home to the folks here in the Ozarks who we can help.
Barry, I've enjoyed it, and we have more of our questions. Maybe we'll get to those on a future show, and keep them coming. We answer your questions on the radio show and on the television show, so be sure to watch Barry and me on TV. Catch us again next Sunday morning right here on the radio. Barry, have a great week, and what are your final thoughts for this weekend?
Thank you, Ralph, for today. It's been a great show. And as I always like to say, be sure that you drink upstream from the herd.
That's right. Y'all have a good week, too. Thanks for joining us, and we'll hear you again next time for the next Watts on Wealth. This is Ralph Hipp. Bye for now.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.